you wouldn't have any other distractions or anything. So great,
Should
fantastic. You've got the job.
should we pick a photo where we all of us can have the photo as we're working on it, if that helps others?
That would be that's a great idea. I'll let you pick the photo. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would be able to follow along. I mean, it depends on how everyone has their computer set up and how they're watching it and all, but it's a great idea. I'm sure some people would really like to follow along and follow your steps.
Because I don't want to have one I've already done and it's just going through what I did type of thing. I like to start fresh. And of course, that's a dice roll. It may be that I can't do whatever we choose. So, and I like vintage stuff. So that would inspire me more if we got an old black and white or an old picture of, San Francisco or something you like or whatever.
Definitely, yeah. We will start from there. It'll definitely be something vintage. If you have a photo that you'd like to do, we'll use it. Otherwise, I can find something. I can definitely find a Golden Gate appropriate vintage photo.
Okay.
So, okay, we will. I'll follow up with you. I think I have your email address. I'm sure I do somewhere. Anyway, I'll follow up with you, Peter, and we'll schedule this and hammer out the
Okay.
details. But I think that will be a lot of fun for everyone, and it'll be really helpful, certainly for me, because I'm really just having a hard time wrapping my head around these depth maps, and some of these apps aren't the
We might,
easiest to use.
uh, Matt, we should give me the picture first, only like a cooking show. You have the dish raw, you have the dish after it's half an hour in the oven type of thing. Because sometimes you get trapped with removing telephone lines and so on, where everyone will go to sleep watching the cloning off of telephones. So if we give me a raw one, I show it with all the telephone lines, then I just go magically to the one de-telephone lined.
I see what you're
Uh,
saying,
and no
right?
one needs to see how that's all done. And, we carry on like that. Or if they do, they can ask a question. But sometimes there's boring delays in just the procedure.
Yeah, we're not going to make you work for a full hour and just watch over your shoulder. We're not going
Well, I might love it. I might love
to.
the adulation and watching all the people turning off in the group.
Well, thank you, Peter. We will follow up with those. I'll
Okay,
follow
I
up with
look
those
forward to it.
details.
Thank you for
Great.
inviting me to do that.
You got
And
it.
of
It sounds
course,
like
some genius of you guys will say, Peter, there's a way better way of doing it.
You're the
That's what
expert.
I'm hoping for.
well, it sounds like you know how to run a workshop.
I do. I've never done a workshop.
Well, you just described things that
Oh, good. I
you
can
think would be
skip the
better to leave
workshop.
out, and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
effect that has on the audience. And
yeah.
I mean, it's more understanding than I have.
Fantastic. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. It's a small group right now. I am expecting a few more people to filter in, but we also have a lot of photos tonight. So let's get started. We are going to begin our evening. Oh, and here's one right here. Here comes Jay. That's great. We're going to start our meeting with a fix-it that Melinda has submitted, and this is a follow-up to the discussion that we had last week about using a I actually wrote some notes here. Using a stereo window false frame used with an object that's cropped in one eye. This will make much more sense when we see the photo, and everyone will be reminded of what I'm talking about. So let me load up the before and after here. If you're following along with me, I'm sharing this on Zoom. We've also got it running on our 2 YouTube streams, and they are going to be about 10 or 15 seconds behind, so be aware of that. Melinda, I'll let you take it away and explain what you've done.
Sure, but before I do that, I think it's probably better to look at the proof of the pudding. If everybody would just look at the two stereograms and decide which one you like best, and why, and just share your opinions, and then I'll go into what I did and why I like it.
I think I like the original better because the new one, it gives me the impression that I'm looking at a screen from the movie theater seat way over to the right. I'm looking, the screen looks like it's at an extreme angle because, this edge of the screen is far back on the left and way forward on the right.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree with Steve on that.
I like the upper one, if that is the original. I'm not sure if it is.
It is. Mhm.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, well, this was my picture. I kind of like what you did, Melinda. The main reason I cut it off is because that's not part of the subject. I wanted the wall to be the subject, so I cut off the car.
Yeah, and so it sounds like we're all on the same page more or less. The result of masking off one side of an eye like this is that it does make the edges, the side edges of the stereogram appear to be at different depths. So that accounts for the tilted feeling that Steve, is that said he felt. And
yes, that's it. Although ironically, my attention is drawn more to the car in the original than in yours, because I can see, at least in one eye, the entire car. So if the goal was to focus attention on the wall, then yours is more successful.
I'm not quite sure I understood that.
You chop off the half of the car in both eyes, and Oleg chopped off half of the car in one eye. So when I look at his, I can see the whole car, and because it's bright red, it kind of draws my eye there. Of course, it's still bright red in yours, but it's only half the car.
Right, and there's also the retinal rivalry, which kind of draws the eye even if you don't want it to, and in the after version, the car I think it's more comfortable to look at. I would spend more time there because it's not sort of flickering at me. So maybe different people have different responses in that way. And what else? So this sort of masking, I think, it doesn't have to be, just straight pixels down the side. It can be on angles or other kinds of curved lines even. But it's a way of eliminating the rivalry on the side images, and I think it can also be an effective additional form of expression, sort of like we know from Oleg's creative cropping images with false frames and such. I guess this counts as a false frame. There's no frame, but it's part of the same effect on that one edge.
I've got an easy fix it on your version, Melinda.
Uh-huh.
All I need to do is copy over from the right side to the left side everything that's missing. Then you'll have a clean rectangle instead of having the strange left side.
I mean, that's worth another try for sure.
It's quick. I can do it in a half hour.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. It's a shame we don't have it to compare with the others right now, but we can also look at that later, or if you finish it during the meeting, maybe we can look at it.
No, I'd have to get on my computer.
Okay. So yeah, I just wonder if you can hide the line well enough and not, because the images are shot from slightly different angles, so the actual depth of the items in the screen, especially the foreground, or I guess the car is middle ground, sounds difficult to do well.
No,
so I'd like to see it.
You just do it in segments, maybe one fifth going down to the bottom and going up. And it won't quite meet up exactly, but you won't notice it.
But that's what makes it quick, is doing it in chunks. Yeah, I've done things like that for very small things that I was trying to patch up, but something of this size would be sounds difficult to me. So I'll be very curious to see that.
Okay.
Curious if anyone else is looking at these on the Lume Pad, because the bottom, the cropped version that Melinda did, the mask is gray. I'm seeing halfway through, or a reflection or something. It's very strange. I'm not getting a solid black mask on it.
I think that's
maybe it's interpreting where it thinks the edges are. Yeah, and it would probably be more interesting to see it with a non-black background, or with a border. Let's see, Matt, are you using Stereo Photo Maker?
I am, yeah.
Could you either change the background color or turn on a border?
Let's see.
Matt, I have a suggestion. You said we have a lot of pictures today.
Yeah.
Can we save this for the end?
We can do that. Are you okay with that, Melinda?
Sure.
Let's do that, and we can spend some more time on this. I'm very intrigued by this technique. I would like to know what kind of reaction it would get from a stereo neophyte who doesn't view as many 3D photos as us. This might be the kind of thing where they don't even notice it. And Bob, yeah, I see a lot of ghosting on this one on my Lume Pad too. I think that's just a quality of the tablet. It just doesn't do well with these high contrast photos. Now, before we get on to the actual mirror photos tonight, we do have another one that Melinda would like to share with us. And this is in response to a conversation we had last week about colorizing photos. And we can come back to this one also. But before we do, Melinda, I'd like you to say at least a few words about it and how you achieve this colorization.
I just used one of the links that somebody shared for the imagecolorizer.com. And so I created an account there so I could get a full resolution version of my original source, and then just said colorize it, and got the result. And I didn't do much of anything having to do with colors in the end. So the tool did an excellent job in that regard. There were a few artifacts, and you can still you can still make out some of them. You'll see like a shimmering color in some of the clothes. The sort of purple shades have that kind of iridescence in some cases, and so I did a little bit of cloning to fix up the worst of it. But that's one thing I noticed that was a little bit of a problem. I was surprised how well it did with a full stereo image.
I'm surprised that it didn't get the skin colors right on the standing lady on the right.
I think that's a man. Yeah, it does. Did it just ignore him altogether, or the colors look pretty reasonable to me? But maybe he's an exception. Let me take a look. Yeah, I don't know. It looks okay to me, but you're right. He does look different than the rest. And then the only other thing I don't really like is that all of the ground turned into a very bright green, and I doubt that that's the real color. I'm sure there's a lot more brown in the ground, but and the colors I think are also unreal. They're probably appropriate for Westerners with money, but for Native Americans, I don't think they had any dyes like that at all. I think they would be mostly browns and greens, yellows. That's about it. But it's surprisingly effective. I think it's certainly good enough to keep as is.
Yeah, I think it did a very accurate job. Also considering, there's some motion blur in this photo. This is a photo that you restored, so it didn't seem to trip up on those details. I'm looking for
the original restoration I did was at least a couple of hours. It was quite a bit of work, and it's still not perfect. Like you said, there's motion blur, and that's unfortunate. There was a more egregious one where the head of the person in the lower right was transparent. You could see the foot of the woman in the background through her head. So I guess she had moved her head during the shooting. So I did a similar bit of cloning to try to fix that.
I'm looking for the link to the colorizing app that you used, and I can't find it in the chat. I wonder if it was from last week or an earlier meeting.
Well, I'll post it.
Yeah, if you have it, put it in the chat so that we can...
There you go.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. This is something that I would definitely like to play with.
Yeah, it's free, or maybe if you use it heavily, you'll have to pay something. But at that point, it's probably worth it.
Well, thank you, Melinda. I'm so pleased to see this photo again. It looks better every time we see it. This, of course, is a photo that Melinda restored for our A.J. Russell Transcontinental Railroad stereo photography presentation. But we'll talk about that at some other time. Until then, let's jump into our main subject tonight, which is stereo photos using the Stereo Photo Maker mirroring feature. Although not everyone used Stereo Photo Maker, some people like to do this in Photoshop. That's fine. Now, our first image is by Jack, and I was expecting Jack to be here by now. We might come back to this one, but in the meantime, does anyone have anything they would like to, any comments they'd like to make? The title is mirrored clouds. I think this is a great use of the technique. And I'm not sure where he photographed these clouds. They look like they were taken from an airplane.
Yeah, he had submitted that before. It took a prize.
Well, we'll come back to this one when Jack joins us.
By the way, I have to say that I hate clouds right now. I went off to see the eclipse, which was right near me, and it was sunny all morning where I was, and it was sunny an hour and a half after the eclipse. The damn clouds wrecked it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's very common, and it's often because of the eclipse. It cools the atmosphere enough to create clouds.
But luckily, I've seen 2 other eclipses in my life, so this was 3 strikes and you're out, I guess.
Oh, good.
175 more years I gotta wait for it to come through Ontario again.
There's a bunch of them coming up, just not in the U.S.
Right.
Australia is going to get like 3 of them pretty soon.
All right. Well, we've got one by Bob Bloomberg on the screen now. The title is Paris Reflects on London. And Bob, I have an idea where you made this. Tell us how you made it.
Well, the background image was shot at the Natural History Museum in London. And I love those columns. Just look like a cake. And I like the mirroring effect. It actually produced kind of a tribal mask, top and bottom where it joined. The sphere, I shot, it was part of a sculpture at the Palais Royal in Paris. And there were, I should have had the original of that one because there are a dozen or so balls. And it's actually a self-portrait. I'm in there somewhere. And I just extracted it from that shot and put it in here. So I like the repetition of the columns there. And so that's the Paris that's reflecting on London.
That's wonderful. You're exactly in the center.
Yeah.
And mirroring the columns like that, it's so whimsical. It's really stunning.
Thank you.
It's seamless too. You can't see where the seam is between the mirrors.
Yeah, it took about an hour.
Yeah, fix-ups. Yeah,
And
worked well.
I can see some depth in that sphere too.
Really?
Yeah. I see a little in the sphere itself. You're talking about not the image within the sphere.
Right. Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, the one it almost looks like the sphere has a smiling mouth on it.
Yeah, that happens a lot with horizontal mirroring. What's it called? Paradia? Something I forget the exact word. People see faces in all kinds of things.
Right, and this was a double mirroring. It was horizontal and vertical.
Right, but it's the horizontal one that
Right.
that creates the faces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing some faces too, right above the sphere. I see.
Right, that's what I was talking about. That tribal mask is what you're referring to, I think.
Got it.
Looks like those like samurai. I don't know what they're called when they have the suit of armor and it's all completely dressed up, but there's no person in it. They make a seated statue kind of thing. It's got a headdress and helmet that looks like one of those warlords.
And I
very
did
nice.
boost up the saturation on there to give it that extra candy cake kind of coloring there on those columns.
Well, you kept it under control. That's the important thing.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far overboard.
I think the color you chose for your frame is very complimentary also. It
Oh, thanks.
ties it all together. Well, thank you, Bob.
My pleasure.
Very nice. Steve, I believe this one is yours. This is titled Metal Maze.
Yeah, I was repositioning my camera. You snuck up on me. This is a sculpture at the LA County Museum. I think it's a ping pong ball maze. And I used the mirroring and stereo photo maker. And I actually had two versions of this, and I debated because I did it mirroring. This is mirroring just left, horizontally. I also did a vertical, and it was pretty effective because the beams came out. But ultimately, there were a lot of things about this, including the depth, that I think worked better in this version.
Reminds me
Yeah, I
of
love
the
it.
cityscape.
It's great.
Oh, thanks.
It looks like the futuristic city of Metropolis. You just need some little cars and some auto gyros buzzing around.
Metropolis meets the Amazon warehouse.
Steve, is this a vertical mirror? How many times did you mirror this image to give us what we're seeing?
Yeah, it's just one mirrored once.
Yeah, I think that's all it needs. Oh, very nice. Thank you, Steve. And I should mention, all of the photos that we are enjoying tonight are native stereo photos. We're not looking at any conversions tonight. If any of these are conversions, that's okay, but I'm reasonably sure that we're looking at
Yeah, this was shot with the W3.
W3. Makes sense.
It could have done a cha-cha. I don't know how much. I don't think there's stuff that's moving. I don't see any ping pong balls.
Ah, yeah. Is there anything in motion in this shot?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I think you
It's
got a
pretty
quiet
old
moment.
too. It's probably 10 years old.
All right, well, thank you, Steve. Boy, yeah. How long has the W3 been out now? A long time. This is another one by Jack. We will hear from him when he arrives. The title is Toads. I'll put this one on the screen for a few moments. Looks like there's some few errors in here.
I mean, that's kind of what happens down the seams of a lot of these
Yeah.
mirroring attempts, and you can see from this one what Robert was kind of facing with the time he spent on fixing his.
Yeah. We'll move on from this one. I'm getting a bit of a headache looking at it. We will hear from Jack a little later. In the meantime, here's one by Bob, and the title is Mushroom Soft Coral Mirrored. I think I got that right, Bob.
Mm-hmm. I think I sent you the original photo that I shot. as well, if anyone was interested in seeing the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I have that. I'll look for that at the end of the meeting. We'll see if I can throw that up and we can do a side by side.
Yeah, the original. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say you could, in Stereophotomaker, just crop out one of the quadrants, and you'll have the image.
That's true.
I'll see if I can pull it up in a little bit.
It's a great photo.
Yeah, it's very organic.
This reminded me of carved ivory or jade filigree. I really liked the effect.
Yeah, it really looks like a living being.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to do much to?
Yeah, it was a bit of time on the center. This one is a double horizontal vertical mirroring, but yeah, I ended up doing. I'm sure there's a faster way to do it, but I just ended up doing a lot of cutting and pasting, side by side, free viewing, and grabbing things from the left or the right side and pasting onto the left chip. And,
You did that in like Photoshop or something?
Yeah, in Photoshop.
Yeah.
You did a great job. I don't see any artifacts.
Thanks. Yeah, I spent a lot of time staring at it and previewing it and saying, that's not quite right. And
So how much time overall do you think you put in?
I really don't know. I'm sure it was at least an hour or two on getting out the anomalies out of the center.
Bob, when you're doing the fix-ups on these, is it the same vertically as it is horizontally, so you can only have to work on a quarter of the picture and then just duplicate it all over? Is that how you do it, or does it work?
But probably how I should have done it. I have to really think about that. No, I just kind of zoomed around and took one thing at a time, and I wanted all of the, like at the top center, that point wasn't really a sharp point in both. So I would, sometimes I figured, well, I know what it's supposed to look like. So I would go in and clone the left one and then go over to the right and clone it and see how close it was. But yeah, I mean, I can still see a couple of places, but nothing jarring.
Yeah, you did an amazing job. I agree with Melinda. If you hadn't told me, I would have just assumed, he just knew exactly where to put the mirror. And
well, that too. I mean, I did try several different attempts at it to get it to join up the way I wanted it to, and I got it as close as I could. But
at first glance, I wouldn't even know it was a mirror shot. I would have just thought it's some fancy kind of decoration or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to thank the Monterey Bay Aquarium did have some wonderful lighting in the tank that produced that bright center that really gives it a nice punch.
The stereo window is set very nicely too.
Thanks.
I'm guessing the original had a somewhat wider than normal stereo base. Is that right?
It was shot, I'm trying to remember, it was several years ago. I believe I shot it with, could have been a macro realist. I don't think this was a cha-cha. I'm pretty sure it was a stereo camera. I may be wrong. I have to go back to the original. I believe this is on film, but I have to look.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the reason I mention that is because it seems like with each mirroring, we seem to lose a sense, or I lose a sense of depth in the image. So I think the like images that are a little bit too wide in normal use are good fodder for mirroring.
Yeah, and doing cha-chas on a subject like this, you can really choose your depth because no one really knows, how big that coral was to begin with.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Let's see. I think we've got one by Oleg next. And this is Desk with Window Blind Shadows. Take it away, Oleg. It'll pop
Yeah,
up in a
this
few
is
moments.
another one that took about an hour of meeting up to get that center to look right. I like the way the diamond in that center area, you can view it in different ways. If you look at the background, the diamond becomes like flat. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of an exercise for the eyes.
It's got great depth, and I love the palette. It's like a Art Deco kaleidoscope. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, what that was is if you look at one of the upper corners, that's my desk, and the sun was coming through the window, and that's the shadow of the what do you call it? The blind, the Venetian blind, is providing a lot of the detail there. You can see on the three corners is the sun shining through the glasses at the top and bottom.
It's so
I like
interesting.
the framing too. The border is very nice.
Yeah, the shadows that are cast really are transformed into something structural using this technique.
But by the way, that desk is not white. It's actually brown. But I jacked up the contrast. Or maybe,
Did you desaturate it all?
No. I brightened it a lot.
Did you run it through any other filters?
No.
Oh, okay. So you were just you manipulated the color. It looks like
Brightness contrast.
brightness contrast.
And the color got disappeared because it's over the face of anyway, I forget what I was going to say.
Well, that's okay. It's highly creative. Well, lovely. Thank you, Oleg. Twin Dolphins is by Jack. I will move on until he arrives. And I will call on Steve, who has Oscars.
Yeah, this is at the Academy Theater. And then it was called the Kodak Theater. I think it's changed ownership. They had a big statue up there just for display. And I shot it from the side. And there's little things, let's say it looks like at the bottom, those that are just under the feet of the statue that looks like a head with orange hair, those were actually beneath and on the same plane as the statues. So they were against a black background, so it was pretty easy to just clip it and then move it and then shift it in Affinity to have it in the foreground, and it kind of worked as a mirror. So, and this is another W3 from many years ago. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad.
It makes them look intellectual. Like
Yeah,
are
they're
four
kind of
discussions
having
happening here.
a conversation, and there's some people behind them also kind of having a conversation.
I thought it looked like they want to fight.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Rock'em sock'em robots.
Yeah, well, one saying I'm going to La La Land, the other saying I'm going to.
So is that a guard in the background?
I don't remember. This was again, on a trip to LA a long time ago. Might have been the same trip. I think I just, randomly grabbed one of my folders from like 2014 and because there's too many pictures to look at. Seeing what other people have done, I go, oh yeah, I've got a picture with columns, looking up at columns. That would have been good, but I didn't do that.
I'm kind of having fun moving the guys in the center in and out of the picture. You can do the sort of chain link fence stereo thing.
Yes, yeah. We free view this. Actually, when I was working on it, those guys in the front were doing that, and the statues were weirdly, like every other pair of statues was moving back into space, just because of the way my eyes were converging.
And that's because they're facing different directions, so you can never put somebody facing left on top of somebody facing right.
Yeah, I mean, with these mirror glasses, I have no problem. It's lining up perfectly.
It's just kind of weird to be doing free viewing within a stereo window.
Yeah, just doing it on the Lume Pad. And it's interesting. When I free view the Lume Pad, then they start going into different depths.
When you preview?
No, when I free view.
Oh, preview. So that means you're not using the 3D display?
I am. I'm using the 3D Lume display, but I'm free viewing that since you've got a lot of repetition. When I free view it, the two outer pairs are in front of the middle pair, which recedes back.
And you can also just, if you can free view the other style, you can push them. Well, you get the pseudo effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do both. So I can push them into the screen or bring them out.
Would that be considered free? I mean, doesn't the Lume Pad automatically present one image to one eye and one image to the other? So you're kind of just viewing it in normal stereo and not.
Yes, that's my point. It's you're viewing it as if it were sort of in the real world, and then you can free view within it.
In fact, I took my glasses off, just put them back on again, and they skipped.
I'm having trouble with those four characters in the front being so far out.
Yeah, I probably overdid it.
Yeah, just try to push them the other way.
Yeah, I would. They could be a little bit in front of the window maybe, but they're so far out that it becomes a little distracting.
Yeah.
And that little speck of white on the left, I would just a nitpick.
Yeah, where?
Left,
on the far left.
Yeah. Oh my. Yes.
Huh.
Yes. I didn't catch that.
Good eye.
Yeah, that's a very interesting technique, free viewing a 3D image on a Lume Pad. Free viewing an auto stereo image. It's
Okay, yeah, I'm doing that now with these glasses, and the four statues in the middle just receded.
that's what I see too.
That's cool. Okay.
You can also just make it, was it 2? No, I guess it has to be 4. No, you can do 2.
Yeah, you're
I
doing
like,
two things. Depends on how you converge your eyes.
Yeah.
I like that better in terms of having a variety of depths in the shot rather than having them all in a straight line at the same plane.
Yeah, I like it when if it fills in the middle ground at some viewing points.
Mhm.
That was all by design.
Of course.
I have done a couple of experiments that I submitted that do this sort of, you know, in image previewing, but I think this is easier to understand.
An illusion that I see free viewing on the Lume Pad, and I recognize not everyone has a Lume Pad to do this. Even though all of these statues are the same height, when I free view, the two that are recessed appear taller to me than the ones in the front, and I'm sure that's just my brain trying to make sense of their position.
Well, your brain is saying if they're the same height, then they must be taller because they're
Yeah,
further.
that's a very normal phenomenon.
Well, there's a lot of ways to view this one, Steve. Could really spend a lot of time exploring this one. Very nice. Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah. Did you go home with an Oscar at this?
I wish.
One of those yours? The life-size ones? Anyway, thank you, Steve. What's coming up now is one by Oleg, and the title is Two Motorcyclists Meet Fork in Road.
I'm looking at it. It's so much smaller than I've been viewing it because it's panoramic.
That's fine. I think it's an appropriate framing. It contains the road very nicely. It's I think it justifies the wide aspect ratio.
Yeah, it's an interesting composition. I'm getting some retinal rivalry in the center and also in one of the mountains. I think on the right hand side, that's not lining up for me.
Well, they're on both sides, but yeah, those are like the two mistakes.
The one in the middle is a mistake, but I don't see the ones in the top there. But my eyes are not that good.
Directly above where the road ends.
Yeah.
On the left,
Either side. Just go straight up from the road.
Yeah, my eyesight isn't good enough to see that.
Yeah.
What I usually do is I didn't do it on this one, but I look at them side by side and highly magnified, and I can spot places there's a problem.
But those are pretty minor. It's a really lovely stereogram.
Yeah, I think to properly enjoy this one, we need to go to a movie theater with a wide screen and project it. When we projected Well, we didn't have a screen like that, but I'm sure we could track one down. Maybe Tor can help us with that.
It reminds me of I forget who said it. When you come to a fork in the road, take it.
That could be the title of this one.
Yogi Berra said that.
Yogi Berra, huh? Very good, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
If people don't want to come to the ballpark, how are you going to stop them? That's all right. I won't say anymore.
Yeah, he has a great one. He says, nobody goes to the baseball game anymore. It's too crowded.
That hotel had the most wonderful fluffy robes. They were so fluffy I could barely get my suitcase closed.
All right. Well, thank you, Oleg. Steve, we're going to jump back to you. We were looking at some Oscar statues, and coming up next are Hollywood silver models.
So this is a pretty famous set of statues on Hollywood Boulevard, kind of at the end of the Walk of Fame. And it's designed by Catherine Hardwicke, who is a famous director. I believe she was responsible for the Twilight series. I met her actually at an animation festival, so she had done some animation when she was, I think, just out of school. But she designed the statue. And I cheated. You can probably see the cheat.
I see it. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Because the statue, its back to you, is almost in a symmetrical pose. Of course, her gown is not symmetrical. Kind of gives it away, but it lined up pretty well.
Yeah, it works very well. And one of the problems with exact reflections is that it's people's response is often that it's a little too cold or a little too perfect, and that's why we like things that are very symmetric but not perfectly symmetric. So people's faces and things like that. So I think
that's interesting. That applies to animation as well. In the early days of computer animation, it was too perfect, too mechanical. And we learned how to put in imperfections to make it more believable, more human.
Yeah, so you found a great solution.
Thanks.
I would not have thought of that.
You probably would have if you looked at this picture. It kind of presented itself.
I probably would have rejected it and done the mirroring somewhere else, but yeah. Good job.
Thanks.
I can't read the sign that says massage on the left side. You gotta flip that over.
I'd rather not. It's not, because it says Hollywood and then it says Hollywood backwards. So I kind of, embrace the mirror aspect, except for the one figure.
I love Oleg's idea. I think it's a nice little Easter egg if you mirror it so that it fits in there. Nobody's going to notice. They'll read it correctly on both sides, and nobody will say, "Hey, why is that not mirrored?"
I'd recommend cloning out the sign completely. It's kind of a distraction. It pulls my eye away from the main subject of interest, and the color calls attention to itself also.
I see. Okay, so Yeah, maybe just leaving it as I could probably just make it the building color
You
and
could
not
just
have a
paint it
solid
out, make
there
it
at
the
all.
building color, you could desaturate it. And I would do the same. There's a person walking behind the statue, and there's a little bit of red. This pedestrian's t-shirt or something, and I'd leave the pedestrian, but maybe just paint out that red, make it the same color as his jacket or something.
What about the car? Is that pulling your eye?
The cars, I think, I see the cars as a part of the composition. They're as mirrored as everything else. I sort of like the way they're projecting out from from behind this statues. Maybe paint out the sign over the shoulder of the statue on the left and the right.
Wait, which sign?
There's like a just you can see just the top of a probably a sign for that strip mall or something. It's
Oh,
behind the shoulder of the forward-facing statues, and it's against.
Well, I see the massage.
Yeah,
no, way up by her face.
by her. Yeah,
Looks kind of like a tower.
Yeah.
it's sort of
There's
a
There's a
blue
tower in one eye
box.
that's not in the other.
Yeah, it's just on the outside of her neck.
Oh, not a sign. It's just like a block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I did notice that, and I considered it because it wouldn't have been that hard. But it didn't. It didn't bother me. But if it bothers you, I see now that it is kind of distracting because it's not in both eyes.
Well, we're not picking at like really
Yeah.
little details, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
I'll pick some. How about the label or whatever it is on her breast there on that?
Yeah, what is that?
Is that a reflection, or does she leave the sales tag on it when she bought it?
I don't know what that is.
Looks like it was a sticker.
I can't.
That
It's
somebody...
frustrating. I want to zoom in and see it, but I can't.
I can zoom in. I think it's like this stickers that people put on telephone poles and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It looks like somebody tried to there's one on each breast at least, and somebody's clearly tried to remove it. But
I'll go back to that folder. I have several pictures of this statue or group. I don't know what you call it. It's a display, and I'll see if I can clear up that mystery.
Okay.
And I'm making some notes myself about things I would like to automate on my end so that I can zoom in on all the streams as well as run some auto aligns and some cropping. Anyway, I'm talking to myself right now. Thank you, Steve.
Thank everybody. Thanks for all your suggestions.
Let's move on to one by Bob. Bugsby Berkeley is the title. And if you're following along on YouTube, again, it'll pop up in 10 or 15 seconds.
I love this.
Thanks.
It looks like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it just looks like they're sharing a meal or having a secret conversation. It's
Right.
It's very nice.
Yeah, I took this with a macro attachment made by Octay. And I'm not pronouncing his last name right, but he's from Turkey, and he makes wonderful optical devices. And this one was made to go on a Sony mirrorless camera, which I put it on. And he looked lonely, so I gave him some friends.
Yeah, it's a whole new image. It's beautiful.
Is
It's
and
funny, Bob, that your pun actually looks like some of the work that Busby Berkeley actually did.
That's
Oh,
why I used it.
perfect.
Yeah.
the flower is so well.
Really should have music to go with it.
Yeah, and they should have little twistings that they do and circle themselves and blah blah and a video.
Yeah.
And how much fix-up did you have to do on this one?
This is great piece. Amazing photography, especially like the wings. I also like the way the yellow petals almost kind of form a pyramid. The petals seem to go away from you.
Mhm.
So that it kind of comes to a point in the center. I mean,
Well, I like the way I was drawn because the fly's wings mirrored the petals. And I like that a lot. And the coloring, I did boost up the saturation a bit, but
yeah, it looks amazing.
thanks.
Yeah, the transparency of the wings really adds to it.
Yeah.
And reflections on the wings too.
Mhm.
An amazing amount of detail. And the mirroring of the flower itself, the blossom, is so effective. I can see that it's mirrored, but there aren't any obvious seams. It looks very natural to me.
Yeah, I didn't have to do much touch up on this. I may have done some on the flower in the center, but
Yeah. And on my Lume Pad, you've got your window placement is really nice. These flies are just, it's almost as if they're standing on the glass.
yeah, I pushed them just in front of the window that I liked. I didn't want to, I originally had the flowers right at the window, but it just seemed too extreme. I like this a lot better.
Yeah, it's very realistic.
Thanks.
Yeah, you made them look cute.
I know, it's difficult. My wife hates bugs and spiders and things, so she can look at it. So
These are pretty lovable.
that's the test.
Bob, did you use like an external light source, a flash, or was this natural light?
This had a flash on it, a side flash that I used.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which flash I used on that. Could have been. I have one that's kind of got long extensions on it. You can bend. It's a double flash unit that I saw George Themelish using once. But this one, I think I just had a small Nikon flash on the top, which kind of gave the fly's body that iridescent
Right.
look that I really like. Reminds me of scarab beetles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that flash reveals a lot more detail also, just in the texture and the shape of their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good image quality.
He makes good lenses.
And this was is this a lens attachment or a macro?
It actually
lens?
replaces the lens. It's like a macro lens. It's similar to the lens used by the stereo realist and the Kindar. It's a double lens, and he has a mount that just it was an E-mount, so it would screw right in, attached to the Sony. So I just took off the normal lens and put that one on it.
Got it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Fantastic optics. Beautiful.
The trick was getting focused because you're looking. It's very dark, trying to see the viewfinder during the day. So he has an extension rod that will tell you the distance, but for things like insects, and you don't want a rod poking into the middle of their body. So I took a couple of shots.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Oleg, you're up next. This is, oh, I'm probably not going to pronounce this right. Oh, Oleg, you tell me the title. I don't even recognize the
I
language.
don't remember.
So Oleg did exactly what we were talking about with Steve's image, with the red letters.
That's right. So Oleg, you flipped the for lease signs.
Yeah, yeah.
All the signs. Oh no, not the F sign behind it. That you kept symmetrical.
Which works because it's fairly abstract. You don't really
Yeah.
think of it as being mirrored or backwards.
It's fun.
Yeah, there's something sort of Escher-esque about this. I'm trying to figure out that floor.
Did you tamper with the colors there at all, Oleg?
No, that's pretty close. That's why I took the picture. I like the coloration.
Amazing. Beautiful colors.
Yeah, all of the pictures I selected were had a poor balance. So it's, this exercise sort of helped them along.
So I see.
And the depth in that center diamond shape at the bottom in the middle is really nice.
I think this is a first tonight where the symmetry is not in the center. He's moved the vertical mirror down, 2/3 of the way to the bottom, which I think is a great idea. I'm not sure if we've seen it yet. I think Bob's are like perfectly symmetrical. In mine, I think were too.
The reason I did it that way was actually, I remember Nalunga did
The fire.
it was
It was the one with the fire, right?
I don't
The fire.
remember it was a oh gee. What I like was it was sky at the bottom left corner that was receded, and that sort of looked.
Oh, the zebra stripe crosswalk.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was buildings with zebra stripes all around.
No.
Because that had clouds that were going in the wrong direction, and they kind of marched off into the distance.
No, but the thing about this is the floor all of a sudden disappears, and you're looking down into something in the distance.
I'm getting a little retinal rivalry with the shadows inside the tan, the ones that are falling on the tan building, the ones that's in the foreground. And there's an interesting phenomenon. I'm not sure that it's a bad thing, but I'm seeing this. I guess the ground or the floor in front of, I'll call it Barbie's house because it looks like Barbie colors. And the pattern on the floor seems to be sort of floating on top of the floor. But for the most part, it's kind of almost an abstract design. I know these are the structures, but because of the mirroring, it kind of becomes something else.
Well, if you look at a side-by-side picture, you'll see that there's a difference in the colors between the two eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mean that's intentional?
No, that's the way the camera came out.
No, no,
And you,
the
you were not able to fix it with Stereo Photomaker?
I didn't bother. I
Okay.
like the retinal.
I mean, I'm seeing it's not the coloring, but the shape, especially like there's little holes in the shadow, and the holes don't line up. If I blink, I see the shadows change quite a bit.
Yeah, that was I spent a lot of time trying to meet this one up.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Well, like those shadows have kind of a a posterized effect, or some sort of a looks like a filter effect to me. Did you process those? I'm speaking specifically of what I think are the shadows on the green walls.
Okay, I'm not, I don't know if you're. I don't think I touched any of that.
Okay.
The one thing it's bottom near the bottom, that is sidewalk, and it was very bright. So I'm bringing those are false colors because I got the saturation way up.
And you said you didn't manipulate the colors. I see these blues and
All the colors are the way they came out on the camera. What I did was overexposed the what is the sidewalk at the bottom.
yeah, that makes sense. That explains what I'm seeing. All right, well, thank you. Oleg. I'm still not going to try to pronounce that. We'll just move on to one by Steve, and Oakland Port is the title.
So this is a much more contemporary one. All the others were from the trip that years ago trip to LA. This is shot with my phone. It's a shot a video out the window of BART. And as you can probably tell, I increased the saturation. And I actually did spend a lot of time trying to resolve the retinal rivalry that goes right down the middle. The dotted lines, once they cross, the one that right in the form of the inverted V, they continued and they crisscrossed, and that was not, you couldn't resolve that. I mean, I could have cloned it, but I just painted it out. And then I did a lot of different tricks, like painting gray in the back. And looking at it now, it's not definitely better than it was. I don't think it's completely there. But I mean, I love these crane structures, you know, and maybe a little close to the top of the frame. But anyway.
it's fun. One thing I do with the center line sometimes is try setting the stereo window at different depths, because sometimes it just fixes itself.
Yeah.
It can sort of crop out that middle part and push the sides together and get a.
You do
sometimes
that
find.
do you do that in Stereo Photomaker?
Yes, just use the left and right arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little smeary there in the center.
That's what I'm talking about. I you know, I put the first thing I tried was your technique of putting a gray box
That's
in
what
there,
I
but
would do.
since since the lines are pointing straight at it, it would just stood out like a sore thumb.
It would
you
become
you
the subject. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't slip it by. It was,
You don't know that. I mean, now we won't know.
It's pretty close to infinity. You could take one part of that image, just duplicate it, and then skew it on one of them to make it go back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of. I mean, I cloned the center and then threw it subtly out of focus, and then put a gray box and threw that out of focus, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. So it took a lot of. This is the best I could do. The skewing, that's an interesting thought.
Well, I wouldn't. I just take one of those images, original images, just cut out that center piece, feather it, put it over on the other side, then free view it or however you want to look at it, and set it up in space. And if it needs to have a little depth, you could anchor it at the bottom, say, and then skew the back so it goes further back in space. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but since it is so close to infinity, I think you'd have no trouble. Or as Oleg suggested, just taking a couple sections and copying and pasting them. They're already kind of divided up into thirds there.
I'm not sure why I had so much trouble with it. I mean, everything that I did, gave up an edge. If you do a hard edge, you can really see it. If you do a soft edge, the stereo doesn't quite work. But maybe it's something I need to just learn how to do.
We're all learning. That's where we spend so much time editing is on these center lines. Also, I think I misspoke before. It's not in Stereo Photomaker that I would experiment with it. It was with the mirroring itself. So when you drag out the mirror rectangle, you can do it in slightly different places, and get it to push the centers together or separate apart. And sometimes you just kind of get lucky. And I'm sure we'll figure out how to do it, on purpose in one shot. But if you do a little trial and error, just do the mirror, then undo, then do the mirroring again, undo. You'll see that some of them are better than others.
Stereo Photomaker is an indispensable tool. I'm so happy it exists. The mirroring function, I mean, I certainly couldn't make anything better, but the interface is not quite right. I mean, there's a mirroring feature in Photoshop, and it kind of gives you in real time, shows you what the result is, like looking through a kaleidoscope.
Stereo Photomaker is kind of, I don't understand exactly what it's doing either.
Sure if that was a priority, he could do that, but I mean, I'm glad it's there, and it might work to do it in Photoshop, or in my case, Affinity. But you just have to do it twice.
It's great. I love the composition. It's fun. Do you have a shot by any chance of those? I call them the horses there, but if you had anything straight on, you could put one right in the middle there, forward a bit.
Oh,
I'll have to look at the video.
And that would take care of your center problem.
Yeah, just stick it right there on top of that ghost.
And then just photograph an actual horse galloping down the road toward it, and you got it.
There's your
Well,
story.
I'm sure these were the inspiration for those walkers in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. They're wonderful. I love them. And this is, I think, the best shot of them as horses that I've seen.
And this was definitely the best angle of what I shot from the BART. But what I could probably find one looking straight at it on the internet and just stick it there.
Against a plain sky. It'd be fun to see that.
That would look really interesting, because there is kind of a hole there.
Steve, do you recall how many frames were these? You said that these were two video frames.
Yes.
Were these sequential video frames, or did you have to go farther out to get this this
I
depth?
think these are two like odd number. There's a frame in between these two.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Luckily it was a bright sunny day, so your camera will automatically stop down, and so you get less motion blur. It depends if it's stopped down or the shutter speed. But I think I even tried to control that so that I was getting less motion blur.
It's lovely. It looks like a model railway setup.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I like that hyper stereo effect.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality is quite good for video frames. There was an interesting meeting with the New York Stereoscopic Association on Saturday. The guest was demonstrating various camera rigs, and he doesn't shoot with synchronized cameras. He mostly shoots with video, but he explained that if he needs a still or is shooting a still, he will just record it as video and just grab the two frames. He finds that the quality is lower than it would be straight out of a dedicated stereo camera, but certainly good enough for his applications, which I think is what we're seeing here. It's if you hadn't told me this was video, I wouldn't have guessed.
So much technology goes into these phones that everybody has. It's phenomenal how good the optics are on those lenses, especially considering it's like a couple millimeters thick.
Right. Well, last week I was complaining about how my smartphone Cha-Cha ruined my photo by making it perfect. I was expecting something like high contrast, pitch black shadows. Nope, it just made it perfect. Well, thank you, Steve. Very
Thanks,
nice.
everybody.
Have you tried an open source camera app?
Who are you
Open source
asking,
camera
me
app?
or Matt?
Oh, Matt.
I have not. I'm shooting on an iPhone. I'm not really that familiar with any other camera apps for it.
Yeah, if Open Camera has been ported to the iPhone, gives you full manual control.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I can get the bad exposures that I expect.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jay. I'll definitely install and play around with that tomorrow. Yeah, sometimes it's a little uncanny how good these smartphone cameras are.
Could you post that, Jay, in the chat group, whatever that link is? Because when I was trying to do the eclipse pictures, even though I was clouded over, I wanted to get darkness, and then when it wasn't dark and the damn camera tried to fix the dark picture and make it brighter. Sorry, not a camera, an iPhone 8. So I would have loved to have a way to make it manual. Didn't know how to do it.
And there it is. Thank you, Jay. Open
It
camera.
looks like it's Android only.
Oh,
I got an iPhone. I guess that won't work, eh?
well,
And it's an 8, you say?
Yeah.
So it's not up to the one where you can just tap the screen and hold your finger on it and it'll change to manual?
Not that I'm aware, because I had an iPhone 6S before this one. I've only had this one a month.
You could try it. It may have been a software update, but if you put your finger on a spot as you're looking through the viewfinder and just hold it,
Yeah.
it should give you a box and a slider. that will let
Thank you.
and it also will lock in the exposure if you hold your finger long enough. Now, I'm not sure it'll do it on the older iPhones, but it's a great feature. I use it all the time.
Oh, thank you for the tip.
I have an Android, but I don't think I need that app because my phone has a pro mode, and it lets you make all those adjustments manually. It's standard. All the current Androids have that. I think. I didn't install it. It came with it.
Well, it looks like there are alternatives for the iPhone for a camera app with manual settings. So that's something I'll definitely explore. Okay, well, thank you, Steve. And let's take a look at one by Oleg. It'll be coming up in a few moments. Runners Take Off is the title.
Yeah, this is another picture that was unbalanced. So I just mirrored it.
I remember this. It was a great photo. Was that a tree that left the shadow in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes such an unusual pattern, like a Rorschach test or something, like an ink blot.
I like how you made the mountains just touch.
Mhm. Yeah, I tried various ways, and I didn't want it completely symmetrical.
It looks like they're running towards that void, that sky.
That was the problem with the original photo. They're running, but you couldn't tell what they're running for or toward or something. And now they have a goal.
Oh, very nice. Thank you, Oleg. We have one more photo in our slideshow, but don't go anywhere because we're not done after this. This photo is by Bob, and the title is The Source. Tell us how you made this.
Well, this is the original was shot at Lake Tahoe at sunset, and just mirrored horizontally, and then I added the fire and the flame and the reflection. And that's about it.
You put the you put a lot of black border between them. It looks like
Let me see if I
You
can
didn't use-
zoom.
you didn't use the full frame. You've got a lot of black pixels here, right? Or
You talking about the bottom of the shot?
there's just room all the way around. Oh wait, no, it's
No, I'm not following.
yeah, no, it's I'm using Stereo Photo Maker, but it's when I reset the view, it's my problem. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I did experiment. This shot, I didn't have anything below what you're seeing there. I tried experimenting with having the water form a point in front and actually come off the screen, but it didn't really work. So I left it cut off at the bottom here.
Well, this is tremendous. I really
Thanks.
love this. Looks like you've got a stick in the water or something on the right eye.
Let's see, because I did clone out some debris. Whoops.
It's
Stand
coming right
by
back.
for
Sorry
the
about
slideshow.
that, Bob.
Yeah.
There it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, it looks like you removed it in one eye, but not the other.
Oh, I have to say, I can't see if it's. Oh no, that was a splotch on my iPad screen.
It's yeah, it's in the right eye, and it's mostly over the blue patch of water.
Oh, I think I see it. Let's see if I can scratch it off. No, okay, that is in the shot. So I see what you're saying. It's kind of below that tree.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty minor. And so you kept the fire normal? Like,
Yeah, I took a shot of, I don't know, I think it was a candle flame. And I didn't bother to do it in stereo or anything. I just put it in the proper place in space. And don't remember, I think I might have just done a blurring and a stroking on the shaft of light that goes up. I think I just created that in Photoshop. And since the reflection didn't need any skewing, it works, I think, just copying it and pasting it in space there.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thanks.
Oleg did one like this, I believe it was a long time ago. Do you remember, Oleg?
No.
Or maybe it wasn't you. Somebody did. It was a beach scene with a bonfire, and it was mirrored. It was beautiful.
Fair.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thanks.
Oleg did one like this, I believe.
Looks like we've got an echo. There we go. Looks like it's gone away. Yeah, this is. There's something magical about this one. Thank you, Bob.
I was sure that was a real fire tornado.
Yeah, it was real. It was
All right.
just not there.
So that is our slideshow. As I said, we're not done yet. What I'm going to do is share our straw poll link for those who are in front of a computer, have a computer. This is your opportunity to select your top 3 from tonight's slideshow. This isn't a competition.
I'm sorry,
it's not about
forgive me
winners
for
or
interrupting.
losers. It's we just want to know. I'm sorry, Steve. Did you say
I just wanted
something?
to interrupt. Since Jack went to the trouble of submitting pictures, should we look at his pictures even though he's not here?
That's a good idea, and I will be going through the slideshow again so that we can be reminded of what we saw. So what I'll do is I'll stop on his entries, and if anyone has anything they would like to say, go ahead. We'll pause and give that time. How does that sound? Let me get our link and put it in the chat. Incidentally, starting next month, the polling is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be using a different service. It's going to look a little different, but it'll work more or less the same. The only difference is there will be an option, rather than going to a separate website to do this, to do it right in Zoom. It's a little more interactive. It's a little more polished. So I'll be announcing that again. That's really just more technical than anything. With that, let me start our slideshow again. Let me just set us up here. I'll spend 2 or 3 seconds on each image, except for Jack's. I'll pause on those, and if we would like to discuss them, just go ahead and speak up. And as a reminder, the YouTube streams are going to be a bit behind by 10, 15 seconds or so. I think it really depends. So be patient if what we're talking about isn't exactly what you are seeing. That said, we'll skip the first two, which is our fix-it and our demo photos that we will return to. And we'll start with Jack's mirrored clouds. I'll pause here for a few moments. Moving on to Paris Reflects on London by Bob. Metal Maze by Steve. I'll bring up another one by Jack next. This is Toads. I'll give everyone a chance to examine this. All right, I'm going to move on to Bob's Mushroom Soft Coral Mirrored. I'll try to pull up the original at the conclusion. Next is Oleg's Desk with Window Blind Shadows. This is Jack's third and final entry for the evening. Twin Dolphins. Next we have Oscars by Steve. Two Motorcyclists Meet Fork in Road by Oleg. Hollywood Silver Models by Steve. Bugsby Berkeley by Bob. Flanquizo Cabrita Mirrored, I think is the title of this. I probably got pretty close with that pronunciation. That's by Oleg. Oakland Port by Steve. Runners Take Off by Oleg. And that brings us back to The Source by Bob. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share. The link to the straw poll is in the chat. If you can, let's spend 90 to 120 seconds, minute and a half, 2 minutes, making our three selections, and then I will share the results on my screen. And while we're voting, I will announce that our next meeting will be our first May meeting of 2024, and that is on Tuesday, May 7th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The submission date for the meeting on the 7th is Sunday, May 5th. And I forgot to look at what the special subject is, so let me pull that up real quick, and then we'll look at our voting results. And our special subject for May is Google Earth. We've done this before. Use Google Earth creatively to capture a landscape or cityscape in stereo. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, let me know. That's something I should probably write a tutorial about. You can use Google Earth or you can use Google Maps, jog the camera around a little bit, take some screenshots. There's your stereo pair. Does anyone
Just
have
cha-chas as well.
Cha-chas, yeah, exactly. They're like virtual cha-chas. They're cha-chas with a virtual camera in a virtual
Is
space.
there a way of getting rid of the icons? Even when I turn off labels, I still get like a little map or some little stuff in the corners.
As I recall, the desktop version is a little more customizable, I think, in the labels it shows and the different different symbols.
So you're referring to Google Earth?
I'm referring to, yeah, Google Earth. And there is a desktop version of it, at least for Windows. But
I think Rob Ellis, when he did a tutorial about this at the Buffalo convention, talked about setting your opacity to 1% or something on some of these icons. So they're there, but they're so dim they can't be seen. It's a workaround. I think he did that.
that is a great tip.
I'm not sure I'm accurate with the tip, but I also had trouble when I use Google Earth to do the city of Toronto is doing tiny increments as opposed to when I would shift key, boom, there's a huge increment. There was a way to do 1/10 of that, but it was still way too much when I'm looking at a city close up. I'll save my question for next time.
Well, thanks for that tip. That's great information. And I'm sure there's that sounds like a setting in Google Earth that you control the appearance of that. Okay, well, we had a couple ties. Bob, it looks like you tied yourself for first.
I often tie myself up.
Paris Reflects on London and Mushroom Soft Coral Mirrored are our top selections. Well done, Bob. I guess we will score those alphabetically. We also have a tie for second between Steve and Bob. And looks like Bob also took third place. So, Steve, you broke up Bob's winning streak. And Bob, well done.
Damn you, Steve.
Bob may have even voted for me. So
No, I
you
did.
yourself.
You can't vote for yourself.
No, I
Yes.
think you voted. I mean, you voted for me.
Yeah. I think you and Oleg were my top picks.
And I'll confess, Bob, I voted all three for you. I usually don't do that, but your stuff was just so amazing.
Thank you.
I did the same. Yeah, I was also very torn with Steve's silver statues,
thanks.
silver models.
I
That was
appreciate that.
I
very high on
voted.
my list too.
I voted for two of Bob's, and then I said I can't vote a third time for him. So I voted for the runners take off. I thought that was a nice picture too.
Okay, I think I've managed to put the results on the YouTube stream also. So for our guests who are following along on Zoom, that's a first. So now you know exactly what we're talking about. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop my share, and I would like to continue the discussion regarding Melinda's Fix It, but before I jump in there, I'm also going to look for Bob's original of his coral shot. Before I do that, does anyone have anything they would like to share or add or update us with?
Matt, I've got. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just mention that I picked up a bunch of 3D Blu-rays at Hamilton Books. They have quite a good selection for $5 and $6. And here's a tip: they charge $4 for shipping, but it's $4 no matter how many you order. So it's an incentive to buy a lot, but they're so cheap.
And Matt, you don't have to bring up the single on that one. As Melinda said, you can always look at a quarter of it, because see what the original was. I've got to take off and leave the group at this point.
Got it.
And you can just FedEx all the trophies, and I'll be happy to give up one of them to Steve. And
I've got a stack of medals for you.
Oh, good.
Bob. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you sticking
my
around.
pleasure.
We love your photos, and I hope to see you on May 7th.
Hope so too.
All right.
Alrighty.
Have a great
Thanks.
evening.
Bye-bye.
I have Melinda's Fix-It before and after. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add or comment about it?
Matt, before we, can you remember to post all those links or whatever you were going to do with conversion or something? I think you said you were going to put in the chat.
So I do have, for those who missed our conversation, I have recruited Peter to, he and I are going to do a Zoom workshop on using some of these new 3D conversion apps. Certainly helped me wrap my head around them. And I just put a couple of links. Actually, let me break these up a little bit because they're kind of all blending together. These are the conversion apps that I've been playing with. These are the conversion apps that were we shared in last week's chat. There we go. That's a little bit more readable. So for anyone who doesn't have this information and would like to start playing with them, go ahead and dive in. And I'll be following up with an email after I coordinate with Peter. We're going to schedule this workshop, and we'll all be made experts by the experts. At least the Golden Gate Stereoscopic Society's expert in using this conversion software. And Peter, you don't have to show us all of these. Just, one of them, your favorite.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, I'm kind of leaning to Leah now that I bought credits. I want to use them up.
Okay.
And I won't have me in a gladiator suit on any of the pictures. Don't worry.
Okay. Well,
okay, thanks, Matt, for posting those.
Of course. And thank you for agreeing to my demands. I'll be following up with you about that later. All right. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add regarding Melinda's Fix-It? Well, maybe I wore everyone out. It happens.
It was interesting for me to see that there were some differences of opinion. I don't know how to characterize those differences, but
I can see it as being a really effective fix if your originals have that object cropped, and if you don't want to go to the effort of restoring it or adding it. Because in my case, where I am right now, I'm doing a lot less photo editing, just for the sake of time, I'm really trying to just get it in the camera. So for myself, I'm less likely to spend the time to actually fix an error like that. I would rather apply a technique like this that, maybe it doesn't hide it or mask it, but at least it makes the stereo photo a little more comfortable to view for me. Or it also affects the composition. As someone was saying, one emphasizes the building, the other emphasizes more the car. So I think there is use for this technique.
And if you think about it, it's really a version of your gray box. If we change the color to gray, it's
Exactly.
doing exactly what you do. So
Exactly. That's probably why I'm drawn to it. Rather than clone something, I'll just paint a box over it. And there's something about putting that box, that patch, that false frame, putting it back in the stereo space that seems to make it kind of disappear. It seems to belong there. When viewed in stereo, I think it's much more obvious when viewed in 2D than it is in 3D.
yeah, it's
My two
very
cents.
unexpected technique and surprisingly effective.
Yeah. It's easy to fool the brain.
Yep. Well, that's what the whole thing is.
Yeah, the whole thing is an illusion. All right. Well, we're actually finishing a little bit early tonight. I'm going to call it. Thank you, everyone. Jay, saw you come in, didn't get to say hi. Thanks for dropping by. You too, Lee. Always good to see you. And thanks for everyone's help. Peter, I saw you come in late. Always good to have you. Let's meet up again next month, the 7th, and we'll see everyone then. Until then, good night.
Well.